And you have just crossed the line. End of debate. Report to the cargo bay and remain there until this is over. Is that understood?
That's just the way it is. Some things will never change.
This is not American Idol. This is Fire Chakotay, the most dramatic Star Trek podcast in the quadrant. This is Mike Diamond.
This is Miss Matinga.
This is Booby. And we have two special guests with us today. First, we'd like to welcome Dan Deevy of Gaaays in Spaaace.
Gaaays in Spaaace.
And our extra special guest host today is Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager.
Yay.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome, Robert.
Goodness. Look at that. I thought holograms were not supposed to age. What the hell happened? How did I not get that memo?
Oh, Robert, you aged yourself up so that we wouldn't, feel bad.
You wouldn't feel bad. That's right.
So we'd all look the same age.
Absolutely.
Right. And besides, my appearance is what we call timeless.
Yes.
Hopeless. It's timeless. That's right.
So, Bob, welcome to Fire Chakotay. And
It's such a pleasure to have you.
Now,
really...
may I start off the bat? It is Fire, Chakotay, not
yes.
Fire. Yeah, because I thought I wouldn't participate in a podcast which was Fire Chakotay because I didn't think, he was great and we didn't want to fire him.
Right.
But if it's fire, if
we
it's
love Beltran.
If it's a command to fire, then absolutely.
Yes.
Now, having said that, didn't Tuvok, wasn't he the security? Wouldn't he have fired or not?
Well,
technically.
See, here's the thing. I don't know if Janeway ever actually said Fire Chakotay.
Chakotay.
But we were walking around for years just imagining that she did.
Literally for years.
So we just thought it'd be a funny name to call the podcast. But no, we do not want Chakotay fired.
Yeah.
We just like him to take some action.
To fire. I will point out that in Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy, when the doctor is the emergency command hologram, he does say to Mr. Tuvok, activate the photonic cannon.
Oh,
one of my favorite
yes.
lines. So I didn't say Commander Chakotay activate the photonic cannon because he would have laughed in my face. But Tuvok, had the reserve, that 100% Vulcan reserve to not laugh in the ECH's face. Yes. When he was calling the bluff of the Borg,
yes,
right?
And the photonic cannon was a bluff, wasn't it? It wasn't a real device.
Bluff. Yes, no, there was no photonic cannon. That's why it was a made up device. And Tuvok, was the guy that because when you think about it, Fire Chakotay and activate the photonic cannon, Mr. Tuvok are. There's similar commands gone to two different officers. You know what? You guys can talk about this on your own later. It's something you're going to decide, and your fans are just going to stick with you no matter what. All right.
That's right.
So that episode with the photonic cannon, was that when the gooey looking fat creatures were like spying and they thought, okay, yes. And they thought that, that the doctor was.
That was one of my very favorite episodes to shoot. If you recall, there was a scene in the briefing room where all three of our beautiful female stars are throwing themselves at the doctor in his imagination. That was my favorite shooting day in 7 years. Because I've never been able to play Cary Grant before, but in that scene I was the man that every woman want, and arguably everyone wanted, right? Every man, every woman wants to be, they either want Cary Grant or they want to be like Cary Grant. And that was my only experience, guys, in a 45-year acting career where I got to be Cary Grant.
I think Cary Grant would have gone for the boys in this room, actually, not the girl, and not any of the girls.
Well, either way,
I think there's a chance.
It was being the most desirable person sitting around the briefing room table. That's all that mattered.
Luscious.
Luscious. Absolutely luscious, Bob.
Speaking of incredibly talented and absolutely stunningly
beautiful. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that.
Actresses in the cast of Star Trek Voyager, 7 of 9 kind of throws herself at you a little bit in this episode as well, a little bit.
Or just 3 of 8.
Or actually, you kind of drug date her a little bit.
Hey.
And take advantage of her.
I beg your pardon. What episode are you speaking of before I defend myself?
The author.
Oh, an author. Oh, yes. You're absolutely right. We are going to talk about author today. First of all, let me give you a little, but I'm not going to get away from your question. Yes. There is a scene where the doctor is playing a sleazy version of himself, which was tremendous fun to shoot, where I completely and shamelessly sexually harass 7 of 9, known as 3 of 8, I think, or something like that. Yeah. We're going to get back to that because I want to give you a little background that you don't know, you couldn't know about author. The actor who played the Doctor, Robert Picardo, got a little deal. I pitched a book to whoever handled the Star Trek book franchise back in the day. I wrote a book called The Holograms Handbook. And when I told Brannon Braga that I was writing a book, that's when he came up with the idea of for author of the Doctor writing a book. So he completely, in a very gracious and gentle and smart way, ripped me off and decided that the notion of me, the actor, writing a book as the Doctor character apparently tickled him enough, because although he never quite admitted, after I told him that, 3 months later, a script came out called Author. So do the math, folks. In it, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I hope you will all watch it right after you've heard this discussion, or you watched it in advance of this discussion. But the Doctor is writing a holonovel, and he portrays his fellow crew members on Voyager quite unflatteringly, and they're not happy about that. And the episode really starts out pretty much as a comic episode.
Yes.
And then takes a real turn to a serious issue, much in the same way that one of viewers' other favorite episodes, Tuvix, in which there's a transporter accident and Tuvok and Neelix are combined into one entity, starts out sort of as a humorous episode. And then it takes a very serious
murderous.
Captain murders Tuvix.
Right.
You don't know, there's great drama still over the Tuvix episode. And in fact, Booby is wearing a Tuvix.
No, that's Neelix. That's Neelix.
Oh, is that Neelix? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Well,
that's the space squirrel shirt. Before we move on from Tuvix for a second, I just want to say two things. One, my sister was visiting me the other day, and I was wearing my Tuvix shirt, and she was like, "What the hell is that creature?" So we watched that episode, and Dan, I know that you guys had a viewing party on Saturday of that episode.
Get out of here.
So Tuvix is in the air, honey.
Yeah,
Tuvix is in the air. And it's a classic, and partly because the performance of the guest star, Tom Wright, is just extraordinary. You know,
incredible. And also, first of all, I just want to say hashtag justice for Tuvix.
Yes.
Yes.
But like rarely, sometimes, this is a trope in a lot of films where an actor will portray another actor. Like in Freaky Friday, you had
Jamie Lee Curtis
portraying Lindsay Lohan. They switched places, and in the original it was Jodie Foster. And you also that's a trope in Star Trek.
If you recall, in Inner Space, I had to portray Martin Short portraying my character, the cowboy.
That's right.
Yes.
And Life with Jerry Ryan, where the Doctor is inside Jerry Ryan. I mean, in the
body.
I'm sorry,
body and soul.
Inside the 7 of 9. And we used the same guy when I shot years ago when I did Inner Space, in the scene where I had to pretend to be Martin Short's character portraying my character as the cowboy. I asked the director, Joe Dante, to shoot video of Martin playing the scene, and remembering that we'd done that and it worked out so well, so I could pick and choose what I thought I could do from his performance. We shot me playing the scenes that Jerry Ryan had to impersonate the Doctor in, and gave her that video. So we used the same trick, just, so that she got to study it. I do remember the producers called Jerry on the phone and said, "Are you sure you want to make yourself this unattractive?" Playing my character. A bit of a backhanded compliment to me.
Wow.
It's so interesting. Before we move past Body and Soul, I just want to say, I've always wondered this. Because Body and Soul is 7th season as well. Did Jerry really have to work at figuring out how to mimic you, or had you guys already figured out how to impersonate one another just for laughs, just for your own fun?
Let's face it, my character was particularly imitable. Garrett does a great Doctor, but pretty much everybody did a Doctor. Robert Beltran did a very good Doctor impression. But I could never, and I'm a pretty good mimic. I could never mimic Seven of Nine the way Jerry Ryan mimicked the Doctor. So
Right.
and who knew she would be that great? But she
So
was.
good.
She and it's a very funny episode, and really was great fun to
episode.
shoot.
Yeah.
Just a little aside, you mentioned the amazing Joe Dante, and I just want to say you also worked with Joe Dante in The Howling as the Eddie Quist character, and I just want to fangirl out just for a moment on you and say, like, you like left such an impression on me as like a young kid. You horrified me. Your character terrified me. I thought he was absolutely one of the scariest things I've ever seen. It stayed with me forever. I love The Howling.
The Howling is in the air. You may have heard that it is playing right now in about 50 theaters across the country. They have remastered The Howling in 4K.
Oh, wow.
And Joe Dante is introducing it as we speak in LA. And tomorrow in my own community here in the Bay Area, they're having a special screening, and I will host the screening.
Oh, that's great.
So the new 4K Howling is out there. It's Studio Canal, the company that bought the rights to it, has done an amazing restoration that Joe Dante. I just had drinks with Joe a week ago, and he said that he was really delighted with how the movie looks better than it ever looked.
I'm working on a horror movie about my aging process. It's called The Jowling.
The Jowling.
Because, honey, gravity is not my friend. Gravity is not my friend.
Talk about a horror.
Oh,
thank you. I am so stealing that joke for tomorrow night without giving you credit. Thank you very much.
You may, oh, honey, I'll see you on Judge Judy, Bob. So let's circle back to author. I think we should do a little table setting as far as this episode is concerned, because we've been jumping around in episodes. So at this point in the series, they are closer to getting home because of Barclay and some technology that has transpired over the season. Dan, what is it that's bringing them closer, and how are they able to communicate with Earth?
Well, so initially it happened when they discovered the Hirogen array, communications array, that went basically from the Delta Quadrant all the way towards like the edge of the Beta Quadrant, which they could relay messages. So they were getting like mail. It was like when you would see on MASH, when it was mail call, here come the letters. And it was the first time that the crew of Voyager was able to tell people back in Earth that they weren't dead. They're out there. We're on our way. Like, don't count us out.
Right.
And from that point on, after the Hirogen, who are not very nice, after that all goes to hell and it gets destroyed, Barclay decides that, you know what? Bless you.
God bless.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, I tried to get out of frame, but it came on too fast. I just want to say, before COVID, I used to fart to cover up my coughs. Now I cough to cover up my farts. But I want to tell you, no, sorry. Please go on, Dan. Sorry about that.
That's far more interesting.
My farts are so loud it wouldn't matter.
So Barclay figures out that if they go through a certain quantum singularity, there's a limited amount of time where they can have direct communication with Voyager. I think it's 11 minutes a day or something like that. And so that puts them in direct contact. They had mail call for several episodes, but now they're finally talking live one-on-one. And so that's where we are when we start this.
Fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Doctor uses everybody on Voyager draws lots to get a chit to determine the order that they will be able to phone home.
Right.
And the Doctor, everyone sort of jokes that the Doctor doesn't need to call anyone because he doesn't know anyone on Earth, because he's a computer program that's been activated on Voyager. So how could he possibly know anyone on Earth? But we find out that the Doctor wants to speak to his literary agent because he has written this book, and that's what sets the plot in for this particular episode in motion. And Tom Paris goes to explore the Hollow novel, because Tom is also a Hollow author himself, going back to Sandrines and various, Tom
Captain Proton.
He's
Fairhaven.
Fairhaven. So Tom has been the main, what's the word? The main programmer, I guess.
Yeah.
On
Hollow novelist.
Yeah.
Hollow fantasist.
Yeah.
And fantasist.
So he takes a natural interest, and then he is shocked and appalled by the Doctor's portrayal, which he claims is only loosely based on the crew. To be honest with you, when we shot that, I thought the Doctor's a pretty smart guy. It always struck me as a little difficult to try to play convincingly to the audience that the Doctor did not see that what he was doing was going to hurt or upset his fellow crew members, because they were so clearly based on and the physical similarities. They were so ridiculous, the little changes. Chakotay's giant, sort of wall.
Oh, he's a Bajoran, right?
Mural. Chakotay has a tattoo that's the size of a wall mural.
Yeah.
But in any case, I found it a little hard to justify, but I tried to concentrate on the notion that the Doctor was using this. Another reference to a recent episode, the one that I got the first writing credit or story credit in Star Trek, was called Lifeline, where the Doctor asks to be emailed basically to a facility where his programmer, Dr. Lewis Zimmerman, is dying of a mysterious disease, to try to save him. And in that episode, we discovered that one of the reasons Lewis Zimmerman is so embarrassed by the EMH Mach 1 is that it was a failure. And they were decommissioned and sort of they became slaves, so to speak. They were decommissioned to do manual labor. So the Doctor, in his mind, in writing this book, he's trying to call attention to the enslavement of holograms, so that later we get to a very serious issue, and Janeway calls attention to the fact that there was a time in history when that only people of a certain race and a certain gender qualified as a full person, right? They were not, what is it, 4/5 or 3/5 of a person. So that it suddenly, when the show takes a very serious turn and becomes about what is it, how do you define a personhood, and how do you, and the Doctor ultimately is judged to be an artist, but they still won't rule that he has personhood, because he's an artificial intelligence.
There's something that Gene Roddenberry used to say when they would bring him a script. They'd bring him a script, and maybe it was like a swashbuckling adventure and whatever, but he'd always place it down and say, yeah, but what is it about? I think what this particular episode was about inalienable, not human rights, but just inalienable sentient rights. So it's really deep.
I think it's also about that hard ass wig they have Janeway in.
Ooh!
Or I'm sorry, Captain Jenkins.
Captain Jenkins.
So to talk about Miss Jenkins.
That's good old Mrs. Jenkins, honey. I dare somebody say something bad about Miss Jenkins.
Exactly. Was she also on 227?
Oh, okay. So let's fly back for a second to the first part of the episode where the various crew members are experiencing this hollow novel called Photons Be Free, which I always think of as Photons Be Fierce.
And each of them portrays like just one scene of it. B'Elanna, Tom, Neelix.
They're experiencing it as the EMH would.
Right. And finally, the captain as well. And so the captain is not having it.
So let's break it down. So in the Doctor's telling, Paris is Marseille.
Yes.
And
he's like a Lothario.
But looking so hot and sexy with that mustache. I was like, honey, Marseille, say what? He was looking cute, honey.
Yeah. But then B'Elanna in a really like not pretty frizzy wig.
Oh, you mean Tori?
Miss
Tori.
Tori?
Yeah.
Tori.
Like, they did her dirty.
Tuvok's got a scruffy beard. I think that Kim or Kimball is a trill. He's got little spots.
Yeah, he's got the
Yes.
spots on the side.
And I think
And he's got a slick back.
And Akusha Moya, I believe, is Bajoran with a giant ass earring. But honey, they saved the best for Miss Jenkins, aka Janeway. Straight up murderous.
Yeah.
Murderous.
Don't nobody better say nothing bad about Miss Jenkins because I'll go crazy. That's when I'll lose it.
As Rich and I were watching the episode again today, and the moment comes where the doctor is saying, like, clearly, these are not you. These characters are larger than life. And, you know, to my knowledge, the captain is not just killing people. It's like, Tuvix.
What about Tuvix?
What about Tuvix?
Right.
Oh my God.
That patient is dead. Now you're free to treat Lieutenant Marseille.
But why would the doctor, guys, and this is coming from the actor who played the doctor, why would he portray a crew of a Starfleet vessel in such an insulting way? I mean, this is, you know.
They're all holophobic.
If I can venture a guess, because this is the way that I've always seen that episode, and I've seen it as, and I feel like your insecurity about the motivation or whatever is completely unfounded, because every time I watch this episode, everything you do seems completely justified and in character, because think about it. If you're having to admit that your family, your core group of people around you are not fully accepting of you, might be holding you back, making you feel like the other, admitting that to yourself is incredibly difficult, because he loves them and he wants to be loved by them. And I think it was a very smart yet somewhat maybe subconscious thing on the doctor's part to say, hey, I'm going to write this because this is how I'm feeling. Oh, but it's not my family. My family doesn't do this to me.
Right.
But the truth is, that's who he was talking about. He was trying to be heard. He was trying to let them know, look, you're hurting me. You may not know that you are, but this is how you're making me feel. And when Paris goes in and flips the script, and makes the doctor see what it feels like to be portrayed incorrectly and horrifically, the doctor is so enraged by, like, how dare you? And I think that's the moment when he starts to realize, oh crap, I was talking about them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? First of all, you've enlightened me about it, because that does make a lot of sense. I mean, I do understand. As I said, I had to focus at the time on the fact that the doctor felt that he was fighting a battle not just for himself, but for this, you know, all holograms, all artificial intelligences that were not being accorded their rights and the respect they deserved. But what Paris does in that scene where we meet the sleazy doctor who has a putter, he has this futuristic putter, and he's going to miss his tea time. I loved shooting that scene, by the way, because my favorite part was when I'm making fun with a tricorder and I'm scanning somebody like this, and I'm really satirizing, 7 years of me scanning and treating a patient in that one moment. And then, of course, when I sexually harass, 3 of 8, or, Jerry Ryan's, playing these, one of triplets, it's so deeply sleazy that it's always fun to step outside of your character and play, an evil opposite or an evil, variation on it. But that scene is literally, I think, one of the funniest scenes in all of Voyager. But disturbing.
God, I love, like, towards the end of that scene when you kind of hit her on the shoulder, which is what's hurting her, and you're like, "Don't be a baby."
It hurts when I do this.
Well, then don't do it.
Ow!
Don't be a baby.
Oh, don't be a baby. That was the time I had to call whenever I wanted to do something that was not in the script, we would phone 2 or 3 days in advance. And I literally said, if someone is in pain, what is the worst thing you can do for a do no harm? You make it worse, right? So I immediately knew that if her shoulder was hurting, I had to hit her shoulder, because that was the worst thing you could do. And then I thought, don't be a baby. I don't remember where that's from, but that was a quote from another role I played years ago, and I wanted to put it in. So I had to call and ask Brannon if I could hit her, and then mutter that under my breath, and he of course said yes. So yeah, I'm glad you like that moment. I think it is it encapsulates everything about violating your oath as a physician.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting, though, is in the Doctor's version of the Hollow novel, Seven, as 3 of 8, is portrayed sympathetically. The Doctor sees her as an ally. Also, Jerry Ryan in that dark red wig, gorgeous. Can that woman ever not look gorgeous? I mean, just stunning, just beautiful. And then I want that Borg necklace she had, but oh my God, so beautiful. So, but the Doctor portrays her sympathetically, like she's on his side, which I guess is how the Doctor would view Seven, as sort of an outsider looking in on humanity. I don't know, Bob, what do you think?
I think that's an absolutely wonderful note. The sad thing is that because she is weaker, in that he envisions her as much more vulnerable and in fact weaker than 7 of 9 actually is.
Yeah.
What does his alter ego do? He dominates her. He at least in the Tom Paris version,
right?
Because she presents herself and doesn't stand up for herself that way. But she's, I agree with you. First of all, she looks great in that, but she is whiny. That's what I love about her, because 7 is the opposite of whiny. 7 is very, determined and factual and commanding. And in this version, they made this triplet that she plays just a complete sort of a whiner. And I thought that was, but really that what he was doing was, I think, tweaking everyone's, main character trait and just pushing it to the extreme. Where Janeway, of course, Janeway's a great captain. She cares very much about her crew, but she's instantly decisive. So how do you take that to a terrible extreme? Well, she goes like, all right, don't waste your time with this guy. He's already dead. I just shot him. I mean, it's taking a positive character trait and turning it into, by making it extreme, making it a negative.
She is rough. I'm assuming that the actors had a hoot portraying these sort of rougher versions of themselves.
I don't know. I think so, but I don't know, because I wasn't there for some of it. No, actually, I'm there for that scene. I don't know. I think it's always fun to step outside. Let's face it. When you're a Starfleet officer, you've got to always be, a hero, and you've got to be stalwart, brave, and true. So everybody loves their evil other episode where they get to go nuts. One of my favorite things was, because Tim Russ is such a wonderful actor, but he was in such a straitjacket playing a full Vulcan, that whenever we had a Tuvok goes nuts episode, I love those, because it was fun to see Tim, get to step outside of that very narrow palette that he had to work within all the time. And I think we all enjoyed that, playing our evil others. I did in The Darkling, another Brannon Braga script. Since we mentioned The Howling earlier, when I told Brannon that I played Eddie in The Howling, because he'd forgotten it, and The Howling had creeped him out so deeply as a young man, for just being reminded that I had played that character, that's the reason he wrote The Darkling, because he suddenly wanted to do a Jekyll and Hyde episode and have me play a really evil creep. And as a little side, just for Howling fans, if you watch The Darkling again, when I play the Mr. Hyde character, the evil other of the Doctor, I am wearing Eddie Quist's lower teeth.
Oh,
get out of here!
Wow.
No, I had him left, and I wanted to make myself look different and more animal-like.
Yeah.
So they gave me like a kind of an underbite or whatever. They pushed my lip out, And I also asked for contact lenses that would make my corneas more beady. So I had, in order to play the other character, to look just kind of the same but disturbingly different. That was the last time Eddie Quist's lower teeth worked.
But he's still getting residuals, right?
Hello.
Well, not really. Sadly, no.
What I kind of thought might have been a little bit of motivation for the Hollow novel is, we're 7 years into this voyage, but at the beginning of the voyage, the Doctor really was treated like a program. He was turned off in the middle of a sentence, or people would walk out of the room and not turn him off. He was just, That's
weird, because I walk into a room and turn everybody off in it.
Yeah. And so and then,
the jowling.
He eventually started to grow, and eventually they started to respect him. But you know what? Even after you're accepted by your community, microaggressions still happen.
Shut up.
And maybe it's those little microaggressions. Yeah. He sends it to his publisher. The publisher loves it. He says, wait for my revisions. And the publisher publishes this novel that really makes the crew seem really dark.
That shady Bolian.
Yeah, and that Bolian.
The publisher is played by Barry Gordon, who is the little boy in 1,000 Clowns with Jason Robards. Have you ever seen that movie?
1,000 Clowns, like Lady Bunny's Wigstock? Yeah. What?
1,000 Clowns is a movie from the early 60s. 1,000 Clowns was based on a Broadway show, guys, in the early 60s. They made a movie of it. And Barry Gordon, who was the child actor, like Billy Mooney. Next to Billy Mooney and Barry Gordon are the two most famous child actors of my generation. And he grew up to play the evil publisher in that. So look him up, guys. All right. Look him up.
What? He plays Slimy so good. So he's got to be a great actor. Because I hated that guy.
A replicator created this cup of coffee. Should that replicator be able to determine whether or not I can drink it? I object.
He would have never treated Jackie Collins like that, because that is some bullshit, if I may speak frankly. Okay.
Didn't Bill Mummy play a character on the original Star Trek? Doesn't he play like the
wasn't he in Lost in Space?
He's in Lost
He's
in
Lost
Space.
in
Lost in Space.
He's the little boy.
And he's been at least two great classic Twilight Zones too, Billy Mooney.
Oh, the boy that could make, like, he sews someone's mouth shut, his sister's mouth or something.
That's a good
creepy.
Oh, and he sends people out into the corn.
Girl, don't nobody want corn, honey. We're doing keto.
Yes. No, that is an incredible episode, by the way.
Last thing before we move on to the publishing wars of Jackie Collins. In the Doctor's Hollow novel, the mobile emitter is apparently some really heavy ass backpack that weighs like 1 million pounds.
Yeah.
Because that's how he feels.
Brannon Braga is not only a great writer, he's just an incredibly smart guy. So he followed, he I think just put himself in the Doctor's position and followed all of that logic out to its extreme. I really think he knows what he's doing. He's a smart dude.
If I can just ask one sort of off-topic question, Bob, how is it that Seven ends up with Chakotay and not with the Doctor?
Terrible.
Like,
yeah.
What?
It was such an odd choice.
It was so out of left field that Seven would have feelings for Chakotay, or that Chakotay for her. And yet we had watched this beautiful, unrequited love story between the Doctor and Seven for all that time. Like, what? How?
The Doctor's also more her match in intelligence. And he's kind of a better match than Chakotay. It was like no chemistry thing.
Well, this is a show called Fire Chakotay. So apparently, when the Doctor wasn't looking, he was shooting something. I don't know what, but
photon torpedoes, full spread.
It was a surprise. It was a surprise to me as well. But, you have to remember that was an alternate reality, our final episode. So he didn't really end up with her, right?
That's true.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
it's actually, it's lovely in the final episode. 30 years later, you're actually married to a gorgeous blonde.
But I thought they gave me a tall, leggy, blonde consolation prize. I thought that was supposed to make up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was also an alternate reality too, right? If Janeway undoes that vision of the future, then all bets are off. The Doctor and Seven could be, you know, they could be running an antique store right now on Beta Prime. We don't know.
You could show up on Picard next season, maybe.
You never know.
I think that would be incredible.
I think all they have to do is just digitally age me down. I'd like to be, I mean, the holograms don't age. I want to look exactly like I'm a 42-year-old hologram again.
I think you have looked exactly the same for the last like 30 years.
Well,
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like
when people tell me, they say, oh, you know, the key, here's what I say to them. If they tell me I look okay, I say the key to looking good is, I'm sorry. I blew my own joke. I blew my own joke because I haven't told it in a long time.
We've all blown ourselves.
The key to never looking bad is to never have looked that good. That was the joke. That was a joke I was, but it's been so long since I've told it, I forgot it.
Oh, Bob, a little tinted moisturizer and some bronzer.
You're good
and
to
you're,
go.
and you're 35 again.
I could be, exactly. And Alfonso's hair, you know, on my YouTube channel, I play the world's oldest gigolo, Alfonso, and I have a beautiful full head of hair, which is from Gremlins 2, guys. The same wig from 30 years ago. And I also play. Have you seen me play my first female character on my YouTube channel? Eva the Diva. All right. Ooh. So I'm thinking if you have new character suggestions, just send them through Dan to me. All right, because I want.
Excellent. Have you seen Dan's drag character, Miss Kiana Prime?
Miss Kiana Prime, honey.
It's amazing.
I don't believe I have. I need video, Dan.
Yeah, no. It has not happened in real life. But I think when I explained this podcast to you, I explained it in that every time I do it, I come away a better gay because they help further gayify me. And one of the things they have done to really like make me peacock was they gave me a drag name, and my drag name is Kiana Prime.
After we named him Kiana Prime, suddenly like he started like rocking these big giant fans.
Yeah, what's with the fans?
Yeah, now he's rocking fans. I think we're having a good effect on him.
I love the new Gays in Space fans. Is that what you're talking about? The giant, the giant fans. It's unusual to get an oversized fan anymore, unless you're a Spanish dancer or whatever. So we're very excited about.
Or a modern gay. Every modern gay needs a big old fan to whap.
Like Kiana Prime. All right,
Kiana. Soggy Lasagna. And is that the title of
That's
of
her one-woman show at Pieces on Christopher Street.
Yes.
Soggy Lasagna and shit. All right, Kiana. Yes, honey, with the weave. She's got the weave, darling.
Yep.
The weave to believe, darling.
The fan really helps, though. There's something about the sound and the power that just totally dignifies you. Like it's just you feel so much more powerful than you actually are, thanks to that sound.
It is the period at the end of every sentence.
Absolutely.
It sounds just like you're slicing through that soggy lasagna in a second.
Oh yeah.
Like, who wants a slice? Bam. Last call. Boof. That's when she makes all her tips, honey. That's when she makes her tips at the club.
I also want to see during this episode, like there's you see a couple of the crew like have really lovely heart-to-hearts with the people that they've left behind. You know, Kim talks to his mom and dad. B'Elanna introduces her dad, who she is estranged to Tom.
And Seven kind of watching from the side.
Meanwhile, the Doctor is wheeling and dealing.
He
wants to be published,
and it leaks out.
Yeah.
And here's a question: the lieutenant, is that Tom Paris's dad in the show?
The admiral.
Yes, that Richard Hurd played Admiral Paris, and is Tom's dad, and he I think he's in I mean, he's in like 4 or 5 episodes over the course.
But Tom doesn't deal with him in this episode. They're still kind of separated.
Right. Well, I don't remember exactly where they were in there because they reached some sort of detente. Tom's character was introduced as a bad boy, and he was a rebel. And part of it, I think, was that his father was so high up in Starfleet that was part of what he was rebelling against. But Richard Hurd was in at least 4 or 5, I think, of our episodes, and always great to see him.
Yeah,
and he was also, what's interesting, I've noticed there are some moments, just little things that, it's not a major thing, but it's such an example of the quality of actor, the caliber of actors on the show and the guest stars. In the final episode, when Voyager finally does come back and ends up at Earth, Admiral Paris comes on screen. And if you notice, Richard Hurd his eye line at first is Janeway, and then he looks down to his son, and he looks down to Tom. He doesn't talk to him directly, but he looks and gives this, like, in a very kind of nothing moment, that's my son's home. And it just, again, the caliber.
That's my slutty man child.
But I just want to mention there's a scene early in this episode. It's just a little throwaway that Kate Mulgrew does. They're in the Neelix's lunchroom, but Tom goes to Kim and gives Kim his chip. But like, you see Kate Mulgrew in the background turn her head to both of them and just listen to what both of them are saying. She doesn't say anything. She's not part of Tom and Kim's conversation.
Is she plotting to murder one of them?
No, but she's like, she is absorbing that Tom is doing a nice thing for Kim. And then she comes back to her conversation. It's never called back in the episode, but like, it's just like this moment from Kate Mulgrew. It's the nuance of her performance. Like, because you know what? Janeway is on the ball. She would notice that interaction, and maybe like she files it away. She's like, oh, maybe I'll do something nice for Tom later. Maybe I won't, but maybe
we'll have salamander babies and abandon them on a planet.
Terrible.
And she takes the doctor's side after getting over, being pissed about how they're represented in his holonovel. She does take his side and stand up for him when it comes before the magistrate. I'm not even sure what you would call it, but it does come to
another great actor, that judge.
Oh, wasn't he on Golden Girls? He played the married dude that Dorothy was dating. And Bob, weren't you on Golden Girls playing?
I saw that. I did. I operated on B. Arthur's foot.
On her toe.
B. Arthur was known for walking around barefoot, so those feet must have been tore up.
Yeah, they were tore up.
I'm not going to comment, but it was great because B. Arthur is hilarious, and she could get a laugh with a slow burn more than anyone. Just anyone.
I also want to say that there's this great moment where they're having their very intense exchange in the ready room.
But if the price of expressing myself is having to suffer the scorn of a few colleagues, so be it.
And he stands up and he walks out without being dismissed by the captain. The captain says, you are because you are a member of that crew. He just walks out on her, and they go back in the camera. She's just staring like,
he's like, decompile the doctor immediately.
Yeah, he just walked out. It's such a great moment. I love it.
In one of the wonderful things about my long-term relationship arc with Captain Janeway is that Janeway, being a science officer, you would expect her to have accepted the doctor's personhood, his, full-fledged member of the crew status first, but she didn't. She's been more reticent than most of the other major characters that the doctor interacted with to accept him fully. And I thought that was an interesting irony because, as I said, of Janeway's technological and scientific expertise, but it also kind of culminated in this particular episode because it happened late. This episode was season 7. You said 19. We're getting near the end.
Yeah,
and it really was. They were playing that hand, that Janeway's unwillingness to fully accept the doctor as an individual. They were really playing that to the, you know, that hand as long as they could, dramatically.
Yeah, I think by the end of the episode, she completely accepts you as a sentient being after Tuvok rocks it out as your lawyer. But like, I honestly thought, oh, he's going to be accepted as a sentient being. And it's a little twist that makes it even more poignant, and then it kind of actually makes you understand and makes the rest of the crew understand, oh, he had a point. The novel maybe was a little rough around the edges, but he had a point. He, you know, there are going to be people out there that don't see him as a sentient being. And you know, as gay men, we are always the other.
I prefer my gay men not to be sentient. Honey, just lay there and be quiet. I'm telling you, in 20 minutes, I'll be on the bus home. Don't worry.
Oh, Mary.
Don't worry
Mary,
about it.
We have a lauded actor with us.
Oh, but I'm keeping it real.
The man has an Emmy, for Christ's sake.
All right, all right.
Only a nomination, so say whatever you want.
So like I was saying, but Janeway does, you know, stand up for the doctor, and Tuvok is doing his LA Law thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really go fully in the doctor's favor, but it does sort of. They find him sentient and an artist, but not a quote unquote person.
Right.
Like
His personhood is denied, but he's an artist.
Yeah.
So he gets the rights of an artist, which means that the novel has to be taken back. But unfortunately, you know what? It's like, you know, it's like putting those nudes out on Facebook. Honey, once it's out there, you can't take them back.
Right.
You're not taking them back.
So
I've heard.
Yeah.
So we've heard.
It's a mixed verdict, as just discussed. He wins the case, so to speak, but it's still disappointing that he is not fully recognized with personhood. Interestingly, too, this is something that comes up in the discussion on his defense. They come up with alternate ways for the doctor to get what he wants, which is all of the published holonovels to be recalled. But they don't want to pursue that line of thinking because of that line of argument, because of what it surrenders about him as an individual. As an example, and they also there was another line of defense where which would have been a step down in his status too, and I can't remember what it was. They offered various defenses, all of which
that he couldn't sign a contract. If he's not a person, he can't sign a contract.
He wasn't a legal technicality. Thank you for that. That would be the legal technicality defense, meaning if he's not a person, then he shouldn't have signed the contract, so the contract is invalid, or you shouldn't honor it. But then that's conceding the point that you're arguing against. It's like saying, he is less of a person. But I thought all of that, I thought all of the discussion on how to defend him and was very interesting, and that they took the high road and argued for the best possible outcome, and yet it's still mixed at the end. So the doctor is a little bit disappointed, but I think he feels very supported by Janeway and by the rest of, and certainly Tuvok arguing for him, and the whole crew, after he's really hurt the crew's feelings inadvertently, according to him. They all stand by him, and so it is a quite a touching ending, I think.
Yeah, and it definitely, because of where it ends, where we go back to the Alpha Quadrant and we see all the other Mark 1s, scrubbing conduits or whatever. Had they declared the doctor's personhood at the end of then okay, so now
what about them?
Every single EMH Mark 1 is a person with choice. So it would have been like liberating an entire, and I think that's what they were trying to avoid. They were like, look, the doctor's a special case because he's been, off in the Delta Quadrant and online for all this time. And so he's special. We can't say that though, because we're not ready to deal with the massive societal impact that saying that will produce. So let's just figure out some way around it. Let's give him what he wants because he deserves it, but we're not going to proclaim this.
Right. He's going, yeah, a hologram is 3/5 of a person. That's what I mean. Ultimately, the final point is that it's really about enslavement and, making, deciding that this other class of individuals are not, are not worthy of rights, and that you are going to, deny them, deny their freedom and use them as servants, tools, whatever, minors. So yeah, and I had forgotten that, frankly, because I remembered certain things about the episode, hadn't watched it in years, but I thought, oh my God, this is really, this is this, by the end, this is a much deeper topic than we ever thought when we set out.
And I think that also the seed of revolution is planted in the Zimmerman holograms, because in that end scene, you see that they are distributing the holo novel to each other. And they're like, watch this. And I think the inference is that the novel is actually going to do what the Doctor wanted it to do, which was inspire these holograms to fight for their rights.
And they have pickaxes. It could get real bloody. Yeah. For real.
Yeah, except that they're all middle-aged bald guys who look like shoe salesmen. How tough could they be?
Oh, I don't know. I think
isn't the Doctor like stronger? Isn't the Doctor stronger than a normal person?
He is. That's true. Yep, that's true. Right, which is another reason why 7 of 9 shouldn't have picked Chakotay.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't he doesn't what's the word? He doesn't need an intermission ever.
Hello.
Wow. And he could be programmed to do kind of anything, right?
Pretty much. He can do absolutely anything, really. And you could upgrade his any part of his entire holographic package. If you wanted to.
All right.
He's adjustable. He's
totally adjustable. One of my favorite jokes from Tinker Tenor Dr. Spy, when the Doctor is bragging to EMH Mach 2, played by Andy Dick, that he's even had sexual relations, and Andy Dick's EMH Mach 2 says, "How is that possible? We are not equipped." And I say, let's just say I've made an addition to my program.
Hello.
and then I love how Andy responds with, "Maybe you could share that with me."
Exactly.
It was like, whoa, there's something really interesting and weird going on there.
You got it. That's right.
Boy. Well, I loved this episode. I thought, yes, it really got an important message out, and it made me think, but also the Doctor's holo novel, I found it hilarious. I mean, I know that probably wasn't the point, but Torres is straight up mean in his holo novel. I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
And this is the first time I've ever heard the term holophobic, guys. So this has been a great experience for me. Yet another thing I'm going to appropriate without credit. All right.
We're woke organics, really.
We try.
As organics go. Yeah. I loved it. What do you guys think? What are your final thoughts here?
I laughed. I cried. It was everything.
Yeah.
I so enjoyed it.
Yeah. One of the better ones.
I loved having a comb over as Tom Paris's version of the Doctor. That was a lot of fun. It's always a great sleazy look.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We
Tom
like
with that
sleazy.
mustache.
I love the
my
mustache.
basement.
I love it. He was so cute with that mustache. Oh my
I couldn't
God.
take it.
I want a mustache ride. So now, Dan, Mr. Deevy, please tell us a little bit about Gays in Space. And also, Bob, you've done some Gays in Space events with Dan, correct?
Many. I'm a big supporter, and several of my many of my Star Trek colleagues are as well. If you visit their website, you'll see pictures of lots and lots of us at different Gays in Space events, because they're so much fun.
Oh, I meant to ask, was I seeing things, or did you, Bob, appear in an episode of The Orville?
I did. I appeared in 2, but one of them, it's sort of a cameo. But yeah, that was a lot of fun with John Billingsley too. So 2 doctors.
John Billingsley.
And he tries to kill me too. Darn it.
Must
be jealousy for,
Yeah.
From
your
the past.
adjustable settings on your program.
So Dan, tell us about Gaaays in Space.
So Gaaays in Space, we're going strong. It's been since 2016, August of 2016. We're up to close to 200, I think, individual events that we've done now, in person plus the virtual stuff that we've done. And Bob has been so amazing to come to so many of our things and to do our virtual things. He played Trekkie Feud with us.
Love it.
It's been incredible, especially for something that I had planned to only be one event, and it has now become
blossomed.
You created a safe space for all us LGBTQI questioning Mahu
holograms,
Two-Spirit hologram nerds, and it was a space that was needed, and I think that's why it's flourished.
And that's 3 A's in Gaaays, 3 A's in Space, right. gaaysinspace.org. Bob, what can the audience look forward to seeing you in coming up in the future?
All right, coming up soon on Apple TV, Dickinson will premiere its 3rd season, and I have some really fun stuff to do in that. I play Emily Dickinson's father's best friend, and especially in the first episode, I have a very shocking and surprising scene with Emily that I highly recommend. I'm also on a show on BET Plus called The Family Business with Ernie Hudson, and I play an Orthodox Jewish gangster. A lot of fun.
The best kind.
That's on right now. And I made 3 movies this year. John Hamm is rebooting the Fletch franchise, so I'm in Confess Fletch with him. Amazing. I'm in a wonderful little sci-fi movie called Discontinued, and then another sci-fi animated feature with a T.S. Eliot title as a line called To Meet the Faces You Meet. So I've been, for a pandemic year, I'm pretty happy. And I encourage people to join my, subscribe to my YouTube channel and see me play Eva the Diva, Alfonso and the stupid detective, and also the telepathic composer who can put music in your head, whether you want him to or not. And I also urge you, I don't have my Planetary Society pin on, I should, but I'm on the executive board with our leader, Bill Nye, the Science Guy, for the Planetary Society, which Carl Sagan founded 41 years ago. If you're a space fan, if you love space, not just science fiction, go to www.planetary.org and find out what we're really doing in space. We are a great resource for you. We're the world's largest space advocacy group in the galaxy. How about that? The largest in the galaxy.
In the quadrant. Yeah.
As always, an amazing experience. On fire, Chakotay. Bob, thank you so much for coming in and joining us. And
thank you.
And was I not telling you the absolute truth about these 3?
Absolute. You were telling me the absolute truth. I just can't repeat it publicly.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Thank you for being here, and please feel free to give John Hamm my number. This is Mike Diamond.
This is Miss Matinga.
This is Booby.
And Dan Deevy of Gaaays in Space.
And EMH out.